Welcome to Feeling Asian, a podcast where two Asians talk about their feelings. I'm Youngmi Mayer.
And I'm Brian Park. And it's very hot in New York City, as you can see if you're watching on YouTube. But we have a really special episode. Please bear with us if we sweat through our shirts.
Brian's going to get real sweaty. We finally did our live show. Brian got really sweaty.
Yes.
So that's going to happen all over again.
It's going to happen all over again.
Yeah.
Well, we have a really great episode planned this week, Youngmi.
Yeah, it's a little different. We mixed it up a little bit. But before we get to it, we're going to do our Patreon shout-outs really quick.
Very quickly. Okay, so if you like the podcast, please consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/feelingasian. Any donation amount gets you a shout-out on the podcast. Go check it out. We have a bunch of different exclusive benefits. But as you know, Youngmi and I guess who you are based on your name alone. And without further ado, our first shout-out goes out to Chezon Riley.
Chezon Riley? I know somebody that's named. I think I know this person. And if it's the person that I'm thinking of, I thought he was Korean because his name is spelled Jaesun.
Yeah.
Because he would order food at Mission. And then he showed up and he was a white person. And I was like, why is your name Chezon? It's like, oh no, it's Jason.
Wait, what? So he would deliberately spell it Korean?
No, I think that's just how it was spelled to begin.
What, he's just a white guy named Chezon?
It's Jason.
It's spelled Jaesun.
I know. That's
Jae is a
like, it's Jason.
Korean spelling right there.
I know. You know, the world is big and full of mysteries.
Okay, so Chezon Riley loves to order food from Mission, and he has dreadlocks. And in any case, thank you for donating to the podcast, Chezon. Our next shout out goes out to Christy Song.
Christy Song. I'm seeing.
I'm getting ABG vibes.
Really?
Yeah, she's part of an ABG crew, and she's the alpha in the ABG crew.
But I feel like she's like smaller than everyone else. You know what I mean? Like little egg beater.
But she drinks the most out of everyone. And keeps the party going into the K-Town underground karaoke rooms that are open until 4 a.m.
She likes the yogurt soju. The yogurt soju cocktail, right?
But she's been in a relationship with her partner for 10 years. So she has an
very high and low.
monogamous, but very chaotic ABG.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like how this is kind of all over the place.
Thanks for donating, Christy. Our last shout out for this episode goes out to Hannah Chatterjee.
Hannah. I feel like Hannah is... I'm feeling like young vibes.
High school?
Yeah, I feel like she's in high school. Do you think can high school students donate to our Patreon? Do they have credit cards?
I think they just use their parents' money.
Right. Okay. All right. I've like totally forgot what it feels like to be a kid.
Hannah Chatterjee she's like too cool for the high school kids. Yeah. She's precocious.
She has an unfortunately
She's listening to podcasts.
Yeah.
And she's like,
oh my God. Yeah.
You know, she reads books that high school kids don't read.
She's like in high school, but she has like, I'm doing all the college kid stuff.
Right.
Vibes.
Like she probably from small town, can't wait to get the fuck out of wherever small town is.
Yeah.
And as soon as she arrives at NYU, she's going to be like way too cool for everyone.
Yeah. She's already NYU vibes in a small town.
That's exactly
I'm getting
Hannah
that
Chatterjee
vibe.
Is. Yep. In any case, thank you for donating to our Patreon. If you'd like to do so, once again, it's at patreon.com/feelingasian. And yeah, let's just jump right into it.
Let's do it.
Listeners, today on Feeling Asian, we're doing things a little differently. We invited two of our former guests, Julia Shiplett and Mike Nguyen, and all four of us are going to discuss dating and relationships. And we thought this was a good group because all four of us are in different stages of the relationship dating cycle. Julia is single, I am in a new relationship, Mike is married, and Youngmi is famously divorced. So we asked our listeners for topics / questions they wanted us to discuss, and we picked 4 topics that cover basically all the grounds of all the submissions that we got.
Yeah.
To make it easy to digest, we can say the 4 biggest topics were interracial relationships / family dynamics, dating apps, sex, and marriage/divorce.
Yeah, and like it's like when we were talking about this, what just happened? When we were talking about this, it's weird being in the same room with you. I have to say, because we always do it over Zoom.
Yeah,
right?
the last time we were in the same room, you gave me COVID.
I gave Brian COVID, famously. Whoopsie.
Can we talk? Can I talk yet? Can
Yeah.
we talk?
Oh yeah, sorry, you can talk.
Oh my God.
Sorry,
We were just,
they're just here to
Okay.
sit here.
well,
Don't talk, Mike.
This is great. This is a great way to.
We didn't know if we were introduced yet.
We were introduced, and we didn't know if we were supposed to give each other COVID. That was the way.
Fuck.
I
We were
hope
supposed
one.
to give each other
I forgot to
hopefully-
introduce you both because this is the first time we've done the podcast in person in a
all
while.
like this
Yeah.
together. I know.
Yeah.
So it's weird.
This is
Julia
a metaphor
Shiplett-
for socializing in a post-COVID world where I don't
now,
know.
Okay, so now do the intros.
Julia Shiplett, who is single. Mike Nguyen, who is married.
Oh,
credit.
I was actually going to say
Woo.
Julia Shiplett, an incredibly talented comedian/writer,
Yes.
and Mike Nguyen, the co-host of the Asian Not Asian podcast.
I'll take the married one though.
You like the married better?
Yeah, that's a better.
Okay.
That's more work.
Notoriously single.
Notoriously single, famously
Threateningly,
divorced,
threateningly single.
threateningly.
Violently single.
Violently. A threat. Single. A threat.
Single with a purpose.
And Brian Park is in a new relationship. I'm famously divorced. We talk a lot about being single because we were both single, and then we were talking about doing a relationship dating episode, and I was like, we never talked about marriage or like divorce on the show. So
Yeah.
we really wanted to like hear from people that are in relationships, and we did get a lot of responses.
Wow.
Right. And we also want to stress to our listeners that we are just comedians and we're just humans talking about our experiences when it comes to dating. Although we have different backgrounds when it comes to the subject, but yeah, just
Yeah.
take it all with a grain of
Don't
salt.
take our
We hope
advice.
that some of the
Don't
things that we
actually
talk
take our
about,
advice.
Yeah,
don't
Don't
take our
listen to
advice.
us.
Yeah.
Just
'Cause
do a complete 180 of whatever we say.
Yeah.
My advice is always get divorced. I love being divorced.
Everyone get
Like,
divorced. Well, I mean, that's why I couldn't wait to get married, so I could get divorced. So that's
Really?
No,
Well, but Mike, you're like so happily married, right?
yeah, that. Gosh, I wish we didn't have to put it like that. But yes.
Why?
Because I want a cool
Your life
title.
rules.
Notoriously single, famously divorced, happily married. Lame. That's such a lame. But I am.
How do we
violently
spin this?
married.
Yeah.
How would we say that?
Hornily married.
Hornily.
Aggressively married. I
married.
am aggressively married.
Aggressively
That's
married.
true. I
You're
hit
aggressively
it like white dudes hit Chris CrossFit workouts. Okay, I'm just like there all the time, crushing it every
Wait,
morning. Wake up.
You said Chris CrossFit.
You
Chris CrossFit.
What if it was
Okay,
CrossFit?
it's
with
the thing that
Chris
Jason
Cross?
does.
We
It's the thing that Jason Riley
redact
does.
violently
Okay.
married. You are now still happily married because you just said crisscrossed.
Crisscrossed.
Chris
Yeah.
Cross.
Chris CrossFit.
Oh my
Join it.
God.
But yeah, we want to thank all of our wonderful listeners who submitted their stories in regards to what's going on in their dating lives. And
Yeah.
I say we just jump right into it, Youngmi.
Yeah. So the first topic was interracial relationships. There were so many people. There was like a theme where people were, because of COVID, going back home and having to live with people, their partners' families, and they're like white families, and they're like, oh, they're so racist. We got a lot of like stories like that. One person said that they had a fight with their husband, and because
He didn't believe the Atlanta shootings were racially motivated.
yeah.
Yes.
Which
yes.
to that I say divorce.
Right. There you
Don't
go.
do it,
Get
but do
famously
it.
Divorced. Yes.
Don't listen to me, but do it. And then somebody said that like she was talking to her white boyfriend, and he didn't believe that people say ni hao to her on the street, and I was like,
Oh.
break up.
Come on.
That's my advice every time.
But remember, listeners, do the opposite of whatever we say. So double down and commit even harder is
Yeah.
the real advice.
Get
Yeah.
aggressively married. Is my advice. Then.
And yeah, an interesting theme we received is they contacted us about problems in the relationship, and they weren't sure if it's due to cultural differences or if it's like a product of like who they are as individuals.
Yeah.
Because there
Mm.
is like a blanket, or if you're in an interracial relationship, you could be like, maybe it is just cultural differences and
Word.
compromise.
There-
But
yeah.
anyone in this room, so Mike, Julia, Youngmi, do you have any experience in interracial relationships?
What's the question?
Well, I'm
should,
just
we-
asking.
should you do it? No.
Yeah, like what are your
Don't
You
thoughts?
say no.
No, don't do it. Yeah.
Don't do it.
Just only.
Have you never been in an interracial relationship?
I've actually never
well, you
have
are.
been
Well,
in an
technically,
interracial.
because you're both.
Technically, yes. The joke is that I'm Vietnamese, she's Korean, so we're in an interracial relationship.
Right. That is even more
That is
difficult.
very
than
interracial.
dating a white person.
Exactly. I'm, whatever Vietnamese people. What is it you say? Korean people are Italian.
Korean people are Italian.
Yes, Vietnamese people. We're Mexican. I don't know what we are, but yeah,
Wait,
we're
why are Korean people Italian?
I just based on like Korean people in LA
yes,
because they're like Jersey Shorey.
yes.
like
Gym tan
Korean-
laundry.
Yeah, yeah.
Live with their
yeah.
moms.
Yep.
Interesting.
I
Gold
see.
chains.
I just go with the vibe too, Julia. Where
good
Young
vibe.
Mi says it with a confidence and bravado. And I'm like, oh yes, we
Ryan
are Italian.
never questioned it.
I never
I
questioned
guess I
it.
didn't meet enough Korean Italians in
There,
LA.
there was
for the
gonna
past
be
month.
not been in I dated a white girl for like a week in high school. That was like my one
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's the
it.
one. Really?
Yes,
The
and then
rest
I
of
went
an
to
Asian?
when I went to college. I went to UC and everybody was Asian. So I
Right.
was like, I couldn't even. You know what I'm saying? This is why we need affirmative action. It's like my dating life is all Asian people.
What about you, Julia?
I mean, I feel like if you are a mixed person like I
Right.
am,
Mhm.
you are sort of always interracial
always
dating.
interracial
Yeah,
dating.
yeah.
I mean, really
Yeah.
though, like, you know, if I date a white person, if I date a black person, if I date an Asian person even, I'm still not fully Asian. So there are going to
Yeah.
be differences. And even if I date, you know, a mixed, another half white, half Asian person, we are sort
You're
of,
still
is
not
that,
lined up.
what is, I don't know if interracial would be the right name, but it's a mixed couple.
Yeah.
We're both mixed.
Yeah.
So we both have our own weird things to figure
Have-
out together.
Have you've dated another interracial person?
I have casually
Okay.
dated
Okay.
mixed people,
Do
but
you-
Okay.
I would say I've only had like 2 real, what I would call like serious relationships
Gotcha.
that
Mm.
were
And-
both unfortunately with white men. So, you know,
Well, there's a whole
those were
section on
very
that.
interracial, I would say. Yeah.
How did you feel like? Because I've also dated white people in the past, but like, do you ever feel weird like going out, like how people perceive you? Do you ever feel like that?
With dating or in general?
Like when
In
people
life,
see you
yes.
with like a white guy, like
I think that people a lot of times don't know what I am. So I think a lot of people don't necessarily think I'm white,
mhm.
but they don't necessarily know that I'm Asian.
Oh,
So, but like, yeah, I think that if I'm with a white person, like it does, we look interracial probably
Yeah.
to
Right.
an extent. But yeah, I mean, you know, you always are maybe cautious about how people are perceiving
yeah.
you as, I don't know.
Definitely.
How do you
I
feel
always
about
think about
it?
it.
I mean-
I always think about that.
Yeah, so I'm going to read a message that we got from one of our listeners, and I've been in a serious relationship with a white person before, and I think you have too, Young Mi.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this person wrote, I've been dealing with racial microaggressions from white boyfriends, parentheses, well-meaning and liberal family, and being a conflict-averse person. I feel like I don't have enough ground to make everyone uncomfortable by saying that was offensive/racist, especially for microaggressions that are more nuanced and difficult to explain to white people.
Yeah.
That was like a theme, like in a lot of the messages that we received, like
Yeah.
that exact thing.
Have you ever been in that situation before?
I mean, yeah, I have. I think usually it's like, mostly I would say people are not intending to be shitty.
Yeah.
Right.
I think a lot of times things are just out of ignorance. I mean, I'm sure I've said something ignorant I definitely have about other people unintentionally.
Right.
And
Mhm.
I think it's like there's different ways to correct people that aren't necessarily, sometimes it's like appropriate to be aggressive, I think,
Right.
when you're correcting someone, especially like depends on what it is. But if it's like kind of like a mistake that you're like, well, that makes me feel weird, but I understand that wasn't the intention.
Yeah.
I think it's also like totally fine to just educate people on like,
Mhm.
hey, this isn't cool because of this. And
Yeah.
that's okay that you did that, but just moving forward,
Right.
now you know.
yeah.
I found the biggest challenge with dating, with seriously dating a white partner is, this like, and it could be chalked up to a cultural difference, but at least in America, it almost feels like white people have the home court when it comes to like belief and thought and perspective,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's one of extreme individualism, and so
Right.
the times I get upset, it's something that conflicts with my Asian upbringing of think more collectively. And so if there was an argument of like, well, you shouldn't have done that, think about how other people would perceive you, or like that wasn't
Right.
very thoughtful. Ultimately, you can't argue against, well, I felt like it. This is
Right.
what I wanted to do.
Mm.
And that's it. And
Yeah.
it's like moot point. And so that's something that I found brushing up against a lot,
Right.
because even though arguments aren't supposed to be won by one person or the other, it still felt like I was always losing, because I'm like,
Right.
I'm bringing on like an extra filter of be more thoughtful, or that's like read the room a little bit more.
Right.
And that's like a
Mm.
very Asian mentality, like
Yeah.
reading the room.
That, like my ex, I don't know, I'm siding with the whites here. I'm just kidding. Like my ex would always say stuff like that to me, and how I perceived it was how I read it was like, you care about other people more than me, like that, which is like was like a big issue in our marriage.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's like, I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like when somebody is very
Yeah.
conscious of like reading the room and what other
Right.
people think, and like putting up like not airs, but you know what I mean, like behaving a certain way. I'd
Yeah.
be like, who cares about these people? They're strangers. Like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that was my perception. And then,
What do you do in the instance where your partner is like an incredibly well-meaning person, but then when you go visit their family,
Their
let's say their family's
family,
like all
yeah.
Trumpy and like really like
yeah,
you just don't politically align with them whatsoever.
Well,
Would that like
yeah.
taint or influence your perception of your partner?
it would. I'm sorry. Like I can't. If I'm dating someone that's white and their family is like Trumpy and they have a good relationship with their family, like we have to go hang out with them all the time. That's not gonna happen.
But you don't get to choose who your parents
Well,
are, though.
but that person that I'm dating should not be talking to their family if
really?
they're racist.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know if I agree with that.
I'm sorry. What? Yes.
I don't know. This is like, for me, I'm like, that makes me so like uncomfortable, the idea of like excommunicating my own family, but maybe that's just because I have like a devout allegiance to them, and I'm like, I don't.
if you're white,
you don't get
and
to
your
choose
parents
who your
are
parents
racist,
are. I'm
you
still going to
can't
have.
hang out with your parents.
I don't know.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you two
I
think?
told you, divorce.
I have a family.
Divorce
that-
your parents.
Yeah, get out. Famously divorce your parents. I have a family that's very Trumpy.
Yeah.
I have a Vietnamese family,
Mm.
and they've gotten like more mellow over age. You
Right.
know? I think for me, the one interesting thing with like having a family like that is that you realize that like you're kind of on the inside and you can help these people. Help is not the right word, but like you identify with what they're going through. You don't agree at all with any of the things,
Right.
and you feel kind of compassionate that like, okay, I can reach these people. They went through something horrible.
Right.
I get it. It's like really terrible, and this is what happened. This is like their reaction to it, right? And so, I think when family is so tricky, right? It's one of those times where, you don't want to necessarily always be aggressive. You sometimes you have to just have to accept it.
Yeah.
There is a limit. I think everyone has to figure out what that limit is going
Yeah.
to be.
Yeah.
Because you still have to live as a person.
Mm.
And I think the worst thing sometimes is the sort of gaslighting that could happen.
Gaslighting.
That's always the worst. The worst thing. It's almost better if you're like out fighting a alt-right racist, because then you're just like, okay, we're here to kick each other's asses. But if one person's like, racism really happens to everyone, including white people, then you're
Well,
like,
yeah.
okay, now we're not even on the same page at all.
That
Right.
also reminds me of like what Julia was saying, because like if someone says something messed up and you're like, hey, that's messed up, and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, like that's like a different situation than if your boyfriend's mom says something racist and you're like, oh, that's racist, and she's like, no, it's not, or like that's like where which leads me to the next message that we wanted to read. It's from somebody, and she said, I am an Asian woman newly dating a white man who has a lot of good qualities, but being woke is not one of them. Is it possible to maintain admiration and respect for someone to not try to change them when they seem interested in the content of wokeness but allergic to the words around it? So that it's like this person's like let's say Julia's like advice, like you said something like, hey, that's not right or whatever, and then they're like, ugh, like they have a bad reaction.
Yeah.
I feel like that's like divorce.
Well, it's like what are they really responding to though? Because it sounds like she's making it seem like he is interested in like learning and like wants to. It seems like there's like trigger words for him that are really upsetting. Like
right.
I remember one time I got into a big like fight with my dad, because who is like a very, I would say, pretty like open-minded, accepting person, but just the idea, I think he has old school ideas of what feminism means, because he's old, and so you know,
Software
I feel
needs
like
to be updated.
software needs to be updated, but also I think that there's still the like 60s bra burning feminazi idea of like man hating that he associates with feminism. And even though I'm like, I think a lot of the things you've done professionally, personally are feminist things, he was like just so upset about being like called that, or he's like, I can't be a feminist, I'm a man, you know what I mean?
Right.
Oh, he's
where
like that?
yeah,
Wow.
where it's like you, I think, just simply have an outdated idea of what this word means.
Yeah.
And I think that there are people just like that, where it's like,
The word.
how do you have a conversation with someone if you have actually different definitions of words?
I mean, I think that's like
that's a really good point.
That's like a through line for, I mean, I dated a white girl for 1 week, so this is my but if I was continue to date her, I think maybe the through line for it is, you know, this is the kind of the shitty thing, is because you're, as a person of color going into this relationship, you have the burden of helping this person out. You know what I'm saying? So I understand it sucks because you're the one who has to empathize with this person, even though they're the one being shitty. But like, you have an opportunity to, you know, to help this person understand that, you know, it's not adversarial. That's the whole thing. This is not adversarial. This is not like I'm taking this from you. It's just like other people's perspectives are important. But that kind of labor is like wild hard, and you don't want to have to do that. You just want to go to the barbecue and chill. All the white people are getting to chill and drink beers, and you're the one who has to sit there doing like psychology
with
101
with your mom.
Yeah, exactly.
Why do I have to fucking teach your mom?
Why do I have to teach you? But like,
Sucks.
that's the thing, is that like people who are in that position, because they're you know, they have the, you know, sort of luxury of being the default culture, the you know, they sort of assume this is how everyone thinks, because I assume my experience to be the American experience. You know what I'm saying? When it is not. And then you end up having to.
But even in this particular example, it seems like this woman is willing to do the work and put in the emotional labor to educate her partner, but her partner has like it doesn't even want to hear those trigger words, because it incites, it evokes a reaction. And I don't have any experience. Like that would upset me if it was a romantic partner who didn't even want to like have a discussion about it. But I have, like, you know, I have white friends who I've gotten into arguments with where I'm like, why does this make you so upset? And I think white people, they hear these like hot button words, especially in a place like New York, which is very left leaning, and they just get prickly and upset for no particular reason. I'm like, why? They take it as an affront to them. Yes, they do, because like maybe it's a guilt thing, or
here's, I mean, one thing that's kind of helped, and even for me, when I was like trying to understand why it's important to put your pronouns into something, right? Like you introduce yourself with your pronouns. And this is a fascinating thing. Like, I've done a few college shows, and a lot of college students, they'll introduce themselves with their pronouns, even if they are just very heteronormative. You know, hey, my name's Brian, and he, him, right? It's not a big deal at all. And what kind of helped me realize why it's important is it's because by you as a heteronormative person saying your pronouns, it allows other people who might not be heteronormative or transgender to say it. So you normalize
so it's not
speaking
weird
about
for
it.
them.
And what made me really kind of break through was like, this isn't about you. This is about you helping someone else, another human being.
Yep.
And if you can get people to realize, hey, this is about do someone a solid. You know, that's the thing. Do a solid for someone, and people will be like, okay, that's a little bit. I understand. You know why you want to. You know, I'm just trying to help someone out.
It's not
a little
hard
thing
for me.
Exactly, it's
but
not hard
if it
for
means it's gonna make it easy for someone else, that's great. Also, that being said, we forgot to ask everyone for their pronouns. So I'm like, I was thinking about that, reading the stories. I'm like, oh, I'm assuming that this person is. So I'm just using they them. All right, interesting.
Yeah.
Interracial dating. I guess I want to just say one thing before we move on. Like, just because a lot of the messages were about families, and because of COVID and having to go in these spaces, like those are really, if you're a white person listening to this and your partner's Asian, or, you know, maybe not Asian, some other race. Just, I think that what you need to understand is when you're a person of color and you're going into a white space, that is unsafe feeling. It's
We
so
count.
unsafe
We
feeling.
look for the exits.
Yeah, we are
count who's
going
gonna be
into
safe.
that fucking soul cycle
You
class.
don't think we know.
The one, the one in NoHo, unsafe feeling for us. So it's your job as a white person, if you notice that this is an all white space and it's your racist white family, you have to do a lot of work to make sure that your partner, who's a person of color, feels safe in that space.
It's funny.
I just want to say that. And ask everyone their pronouns.
And get divorced. Please get divorced.
And divorce.
So the next topic that we wanted to touch on is dating apps. And we addressed up top, Julia, that you are violently single. Are you on the dating apps?
I am, even though I'm violently single, I am passively on the dating apps.
Why passively?
Because I just am not into them right now. You know, right now I'm only on Hinge.
Okay.
And I just...
Is that because that's the one, you're able to control the dialogue a little bit better? Is that why? Or is there any sort of other reason? No? Okay. Never mind.
No, I think it's because like Tinder, I think is like a bad user face.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I don't like the user experience. It's like
design is kind of off. The vibes are
design
off.
is off. It's also just
Respect.
feels,
even
though everyone's who's on Tinder is probably on Hinge too, it feels like a smaller pool on Hinge.
Yeah.
It's probably not, to be honest, but Tinder just like overwhelms me.
Okay.
I think. Bumble, I just I don't know. I'm just on Hinge, but I just don't really check it very often. And
has it always been that way for you? Like since the first time you started using dating apps, you always used it passively, or?
No, I feel like there were times where I'd be like, okay, check Instagram, check it. But I just feel like maybe it's COVID where I'm just like, I'm exhausted. I mean, I've gone on a few dates.
Right.
They just, I don't feel like there was like anything really there.
Yeah.
In terms of that.
I can't.
I did go on a date yesterday, actually.
Ooh,
through
nice.
Hinge? Was it through the Hinge?
It was through Hinge.
Okay.
Nice.
Wow.
And they told me within like the first 20 minutes, they're like, so my partner and I actually recently just did a little trip on the West Coast. And I was like, oh, you're okay.
Okay.
Oh,
I did not know that.
Oh,
they're in an open relationship.
Yeah.
You didn't know that.
Or they're getting serious.
I feel like
And I was kind of like, that
What
would
a
nice
topic to bring up.
I feel like you should say that before the date.
I
Because I've
kinda
been on a few dates.
Is there like
that
a
and
setting you can put on the thing, where it's like open relationship with an open relationship?
No.
You should put that in your profile. I
But
think.
you should mention it or bring it up in messaging back and forth. You
Yeah,
know, just
sure.
like, hey,
There.
FYI, blah, blah, blah.
I agree.
So yeah, I was kind of like, all right, it was still like a nice time. And I also feel like it was with a woman, and I collect women. I just I want women in my life, like in general, in a way that no offense, I just don't feel that with men to be.
Yeah.
I don't need, for me, it's like with guy friends, it's like you're kind of grandfathered in, you know?
Yes.
It's like, I'm
Grandfathered
Just
not,
like my Verizon plan.
A fresh
Thank you,
guy,
thank
a
you.
fresh like cis-het man friend. No,
No,
that's
I
not gonna
get it.
happen.
Totally get it.
maybe if
Not
I
a
know that they're
fresh
really
one.
cool and a bunch of my friends are friends with them, like I have people vouching for them, but like just a lone stranger coming
Right.
into my life,
Straight up. Yeah.
probably
So
not.
for you,
gonna
Factory
happen.
fresh ones?
So
No
for
way.
you,
No.
Young, a new cishet guy friend is like the free mobile phone case that they give you
Yep.
at Verizon when you purchase a new phone, and
Just
you're like,
gives-
I don't really need this,
It just
but
comes
I
with
mean,
it.
sure, I fucking guess.
I don't want this.
Yeah.
It's not gonna happen.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how this
So
is added.
But yeah, but this
Yeah,
is, I
it's
guess this is open to everyone except for Mike, because you, you don't have as much experience with
No, I
dating apps.
definitely
But something that came up a lot from our submissions was choice paralysis.
Yeah.
Like, did you ever deal with that?
What do you mean choice
There's
paralysis?
so much choice that you can't choose one of them. Well,
Like, not who you want to commit. Like, it makes commitment hard. Like, there's just too
Online
many,
dating?
Yeah, there's
because
like
you're like in the back
too
of
many
your head,
options
you're like, I can just
available.
go like swipe.
maybe
through
there's someone
Tinder.
better.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's literally designed to do that, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's true.
I think even though Hinge is, their like tagline is like designed to make you quit Hinge, you know, it's like they say like you find your person, you're off. We want you to not be on here anymore.
Yeah.
I don't think that's true. I think, yeah, it definitely is. I think for a lot of people, for me, I think I'm more like, I just get so overwhelmed that I'm like, nobody. I'm not hanging out with anybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Right.
Rather than being like, well, let's see who else is better out there. I'm just like,
Ah.
and nobody.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but I
had-
think that's just where I don't know if I'm in like a very romantic headspace,
Right.
unfortunately.
I almost had the opposite experience of you, where I would just serial date on using the apps, and instead of no one, I would go everyone. Like
And-
I
yeah.
want to just, and nothing would manifest into anything more because I was in this constant headspace of everything's so new, like new stimuli. Like these aren't really deep connections, but it's just a new person, and it's going to be exciting to learn about them.
But you still had
Yeah.
to have enough interest to meet up with someone in person, which for me, I find like going on a first date, I'm like, I gotta
know.
really psych myself up these days.
And I'm always like, I
Right.
want to go.
I don't.
do
It
that.
feels like an appointment. It
torture.
feels.
But I was going into it from such an unhealthy headspace though, because I almost treated it like a drug. Like when I would
Yeah.
have
An addiction.
frustrations
That's what it
with
sounds like.
my, let's say like I was upset about something with my career, it wasn't like going the way I wanted it to.
Right. Yeah.
I would go to the apps to get that validation.
I've
I'd be like,
definitely
well, I have
been
nothing
in that
happening
headspace.
tonight. Like my friends don't want to hang. I don't have any shows.
Yep.
At least I'm going on a date though.
Yeah.
Oh.
I've definitely been in that space.
Yeah.
But this message we got this is interesting because a lot of the messages were from like cishet women about how poorly they're treated by cishet men because of this. The dating apps are like, oh, they're just fucking everyone and
Whoa.
ghosting me. And we
Yeah.
got a lot of like ghosting messages. But this one is somebody that has choice paralysis like Brian. And they said, having trouble deciding when to commit to someone in a culture of online dating, serial dating, I often find myself in choice paralysis. Do you really think there's such a thing as when you know, you know? And I think that this is kind of proving, like you, Brian, I guess, because you had choice paralysis. You were doing this. Like, when did you, how did you know when you knew? Because you just now are in a relationship.
Right. I mean, with my current girlfriend, the chemistry was like so great from the first date.
Yeah.
Like something stood out about that date in comparison to all the others I went on.
Mm.
But even before we had met, I was just getting so fucking tired of, like, there was a conscious choice that I had to shift in my brain where, okay, you know what? I'm ready to commit to something serious. Because
Right.
I was single for quite some time, and I felt like if I didn't make the effort in my brain, I would be in this constant state of choice paralysis.
Right.
There's so many fucking cool people in New York that I want to meet. Like, there's an endless stream of them.
So
And-
it's like half and half. There was like a vibe that was strong.
yeah.
And then the other half is like you were mentally in the space to commit to something. Is that what you're
Yeah, like it aligned. Like there was
Right.
work done on my end where I was tired of just impulsively meeting new people.
Yeah.
Because I would never let anything manifest into something more. And perhaps it definitely was a fear of commitment. I wouldn't give myself the opportunity to let it grow into anything more. But my girlfriend's great. And it made that it aligned.
Right.
Yeah. But I think there's definitely like a concerted effort. I don't know if it's that organic where you're like, this is the best. I just know.
Right.
Because you got to put the effort to like text people and check in and show that you're interested.
Yeah.
That's all effort.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel if there was really an app that was about we're gonna make dating so that this, it's a dating app that is designed to keep you from dating. It would be an app where the first match you have, that's it, and then the app would delete itself, and you have to marry that person.
Yeah.
That's really the whole thing. That's the whole
That's a
thing.
Black Mirror episode.
That's
by
like
the way.
really the
Really?
whole thing. I mean,
that.
the whole thing about
Is it? I want to watch it.
it would be. That's the way. That's the solution. That's
so
the solution.
appifying arranged
Arranged
marriage.
marriage.
Yeah.
An app that where you have to be married to this person.
Right.
You don't have a choice. And if you it just deletes itself and you're locked in. Because that's
Yeah.
like the whole thing with
locked in.
and also I would our challenge. Most people in New York City are terrible and not cool at all.
I
I've
agree.
Only met,
I think they're all garbage.
I mean, I've been with my partner for years and years, and I think in the entire time in New York City, I've probably met 2 or 3 people where I'm like, this person's pretty cool. I would be interested in learning more about them.
Oh.
Not because like a lot of it
Wow.
otherwise is just like let's just
listeners, there are 4 people in this room.
yeah. But like
Coincidence? I
yeah.
don't think so.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, get the app ready. So it's I think with choice, I think, is kind of an illusion.
Mm.
You know, when you relationships don't make sense when you use the individual rubric of like what's the best for me, then you will never find that person, because there's no, you know, that you're using a measure that is incompatible with the ultimate goal. Because you get into a relationship means you're pruning some of your individual needs and wants away, which is why it doesn't work. Because like as soon as somebody you meet is like, oh, I don't want you to do this, you go, this person's bad for me. Because as an individual who's single, you should be measuring your best outcomes as maximizing your pleasure and maximizing your options and all those things. But those are things that automatically will be removed when you get into a relationship.
Yeah.
So they're incompatible things that you're looking for. So I'm not saying that, I don't know what the thing is, but you should be aware that that is happening. You know what I'm saying? When I'm married and it's great, but I sacrifice a lot of stuff. You know? And I wouldn't say it's worth it. I'm not going to say that, because that value is incongruous with a functioning relationship.
No, I was like serial monogamous, and I'm like now been single for almost 2 years now by choice. I was like, I can't do this. Yeah. But I think that's one of the things that I learned. It's that like, oh, like now it's almost like I went too hard with it. And I think that's what you're saying. Single people are like this, especially in New York, because there's so many options. Like the second one person does something and I'm like, nope,
I have another option. I'm out of here. Exactly. Which is cool. I mean, you know, if you want in that space. Yeah.
In my head, I thought, oh no, one day I'm going to meet somebody perfect. And then I'm going to be in a relationship with them. But I'm realizing like what Mike's saying, like that's not possible. So it's like, you're going to just have to meet somebody and there's like wrong things about them, but you're like willing to be okay with it or work
you
to be in a relationship.
You have to
with
work
them.
through that thing,
which I didn't really realize until I was single, I think.
So like the whole thing, I think, when again to go back to the choice paralysis thing, there is a, you know, if you go to a cereal aisle, what's the best cereal, you know, like that is a choice because there is an option that is your best one, but like what if the cereal you chose was like you can never eat another cereal again? You know, that's kind of like what you're doing, right? You're that's the
Unless
conundrum.
that cereal is open, but
Unless that cereal comes with a bunch of different samples inside of it. That's kind of like that's like the mind fuck that you're getting into. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
And you'll never know if you got the kicks and you kind of like the kicks. You would never know that like fucking Lucky Charms exists, and you would have loved that.
That's great.
Because you're just okay with the kicks. You know what I mean?
That's why I think it's good to try a lot of cereal.
Yeah. Get the pack with the small mini ones, and you get 20 different kinds. And then you also get
maybe
chlamydia.
You want to mix them all together. You mix them all together in a big ass bowl, and it gets real weird and mushy. It's weird and sticky. Okay.
Sticky.
But it's also so hard because you also have to like, even if you meet someone, then you're like, okay, they're checking a lot of things that I really like. They have to do that for you too.
And you
that's
both
so
have
hard.
to agree on that.
It's really hard.
It's
like,
very difficult.
That's for
especially
me,
in New York.
Dating right now, it feels like it's like kind of like a lottery where it's like, man, it's gonna be like, it's just the odds that like
it's just truly so random and arbitrary because there's too many variables that are outside of your control.
There's so many variables, and I think timing is a huge one too. Like timing is everything.
What Brian said,
you know, there are people I've dated who I'm like, I think you're awesome. I just don't feel like this is not the time for this to happen.
Absolutely.
And that sucks because I think it's real.
For sure. You definitely touched on something that a lot of our listeners spoke about, is that there's a lot of rejection that comes with putting yourself out there through the dating apps, and there's tons of ghosting that happens. And to the point where people are just it removes all motivation to even date or put yourself out there anymore.
Yeah, we got a lot of
what's the fucking point when people aren't willing to like meet me in the middle? Like, I'm putting myself out there, but you're like, I'm disposable. Yeah.
Also, I would say like I've never ghosted somebody that was like I was dating in a serious way, but you know, they're like people that you see casually and you just stop talking to them, whatever. But I just want to say, I think people, if you're dating someone, I think just send the text. Don't ghost. Just be like, it's not working out. It's not. That's fine. Just one fucking awkward text.
So the next topic that we wanted to touch on is sex, and
never heard of it.
I'll go ahead and I'll excuse myself from this one as well.
More specifically, sexual compatibility. And just to dive right into it, we received a message from someone, and they wrote, in a monogamish hetero relationship, we're both Asian and love your pod. How do you keep the initial new relationship energy going past the honeymoon phase, especially with regard to libido/sex?
Mike?
I mean, a lot of this is it's just something you have to work on. There's no sexy way to get around it. It's
That's what I
just
think is like when you talk about it, it like kind of makes it so scientific and unsexy.
it's
no?
but that's the thing. The maintaining it is unsexy. You know what I'm saying? But you know, like
maintenance is not sexy.
Maintenance is not
right?
sexy, but like if this is important to you, then you have to continue to do these things. I think also, you know, I mean, to make it sound very, you know, Cosmo advice ad, it's like trying new things together. You know, those are like things where you have to be open to doing those. Like vulnerability is very sexy. That's like the one thing I would say is like there's a sexiness in that, especially I think for
that is sexy.
basic ass hetero people like myself.
Yeah.
You know, like putting yourself out there ends up leading into like this interesting weird area because it's like a place that, you know, in general you're not supposed to go to, right? And you end up getting somewhere interesting there. But again, it is a let's work on this thing.
And
you know
like
what I'm
let's put a donut on your dick.
Yes,
and
exactly.
see what happens.
And just see
according
what
to
happens.
Cosmo.
According to Cosmo.
Eat around the. I
Eat
remember
around
that
the
article. It was from when I was 13. I was like writing notes. Did you just eat the icing?
I feel like that's going to cause a yeast infection. I don't
A
want powdered
yeast
because then like the powdery
infection.
sugar goes inside
Literal
of you.
yeast.
That's
Oh, good
literally yeast infection.
Yeah, so maybe
Yeah.
not the donut. Instead, maybe
What
maybe
should
something
it be?
sugar free. So that's the thing.
Right.
don't even
I think
know.
something shifted in my brain recently. Let's say in terms of sexual compatibility, but even also more largely how I approach disagreements is that I've spoke about this on the podcast before, but I used to. I mean, still do. Who knows? I'm working through it. But lots of performance anxiety was a big thing for me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sexually.
Yeah, never
And
for me, but yeah, okay.
I always, I treated it as like, fuck you, Mike.
Why is Mike laughing?
I
Wow.
Sorry.
How dare you?
I treat it as
Dare
like
you.
I'm showing up and I have to knock this out of the park.
Mm.
But like as you discussed, Mike, when you do the maintenance or you have this kind of clunky, awkward conversation about sex with your partner, you're like on the same team. And that's how that's what kind of like a breakthrough moment for me is like we're tackling this thing, which is sex and making this
Working it
pleasurable for
together.
both
Yeah.
of us.
Yeah.
But like there's not one person who's supposed to like perform better than the other. Like we're on the
Yeah.
same side of the table and we're
Yeah,
trying
it's
to like
not
cook a good
adversarial.
meal for like that we can both enjoy.
You love someone, and that plays a
Ew.
factor. I know, because I think a lot of times, especially in New York, I feel like sex is very much a performance. It is a animalistic
I
thing.
hate the.
It's just very like check out this from the top rope, you know, like boom, and it's just like all sorts of weird.
WWE.
Yeah, I don't know, you know, it's like, but I think like, you know, when you get to a certain point, you realize that there's this other person. That's the weird thing. Like, you know, for a long time, sex and love are not intertwined in the relationship. You know, they can be, but a lot of times people keep it separate.
Yeah.
You know, for a long time, sex and love are different. And over time, you want to put those things together, and that leads into another space. But like, it is not something that is actually talked about. I think people think of love as being up on a pedestal, and you need to combine it with your physical needs too. You know,
Right.
You know, like it's either like the sexy tryst, or it's like you're in love, and then you're in the suburbs. That's it.
That is an interesting point because people do not really talk about the marriage, love, sex. Like you hear about marriage, like as in we're not having enough sex because that's what marriage
Or
is.
if
Right.
using male comedians model, we don't fuck anymore.
Yeah.
Fuck anymore.
I don't. My wife doesn't
Stupid
fuck me
bitch.
anymore. Yeah, I don't. Like, but yeah, there is like obviously there are people out there that are happily married and having marriage sex.
Yeah.
Love sex.
Obviously,
It's
there are
weird.
people that are,
I don't know.
you don't even hear about that
Yes.
ever.
So that's like a space that I feel you know, if you're in that thing, you know, that is unusual. You know, you're not gonna get that in like a pre relationship thing.
Yeah. Okay, well talking about more sex. Here's another message. They said, I guess for me, it's maybe at the most basic level, not aligning with my partner in terms of sexual experience / desires. My last relationship was very sexually open. By that, I mean kinks and being able to have sex with other people. My ex was into the swinger scene, and most of the Asians you see were white men with Asian women who wasn't fluent in English. That's horrible. For the record, we're both Asian. So it was like 2 Asian people going to these swinger scenes with
Got it.
I'm now in a monogamous relationship, and my partner, also Asian, isn't very expressive or really knows what he wants in bed. I feel like such a freak, in parentheses, in a bad way. And it's really hard trying to pry open that classic Asian man stoicism so we can both have a really good time doing kinky shit. Which,
That's tough.
yeah, that's hard. When you're a freak in a bad way.
In a bad way. Parentheses.
Parentheses. Threateningly.
Yeah.
We did get a lot of messages from people, from Asian men or their partners, about like this sort of stereotype, like they're not into sex, or we got one message from an Asian man being like, you know, he's very uncomfortable with the idea of sex, like it takes him a long time to warm up and things like that. What do you like? That's like kind of interesting. In a sex, I guess, to both of you, like what do you think about those like thoughts that people have, or you know, just because we did get a lot of messages about it, like that sort of like not sexual or shy in bed Asian man stereotype thing? It's not been my experience personally. Just putting that out there.
Oh, am I starting? Or you?
Like, I don't know. Does anyone have any ideas?
Well, I feel like, do you guys want to talk first?
Let that
We're
women
being
talk.
we're being very shy Asian men.
I mean, I don't know if that's like uncomfortable, but
I mean, I feel there is, you know, the incompatibility thing is a tricky one, because there's so much shame involved, you know. There's just so much like even if you are even if you're the one who's a little bit more, there's shame on both sides. There's shame on like if you're the freaky one and you may be afraid of being judged,
Right.
and the other way too. Like if you're one who's maybe like you're not
Like, why am I so vanilla?
right. I'm so vanilla, you know.
Yeah.
I'm a basic dude. I like good old missionary, you know. I
Right.
like to, because then we get to plan our day as we're looking at each other, you know. And we're
that's
like
marriage sex.
that's
Everyone,
marriage
marriage
sex. We're
love
like,
sex.
like listen, after
Get
this,
the
okay,
grocery list.
you're gonna go to the dry cleaning. I'm gonna go pick up the hot dogs, you know, and
That sounds kind of hot, actually. I got into that. I was like, whoa, I want to do that.
you know, I do think it is really hard to work through those things. I mean, that we could pinch off this thing and start a whole new podcast with just this.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I want to leave it. I'm just going to put a pin in there for a second. Because I want
Right.
to hear what everyone else
I do think that sexual compatibility it's very real. I think
yeah.
there are
Yeah,
like
yeah.
limits to it.
Yeah, for sure.
People have different like levels of patience, or like even openness and vulnerability and willingness to talk about this kind of shit. I think and this ties back to what I said earlier, but it's just seeing this as a new avenue for like you to connect with your partner. Like as Mike said, as clunky and weird as it is, like maybe you two will end up like connecting more deeply if you can solve this together.
Right.
But yeah, it's hard. Like you
Yeah.
said, it's super tricky, because I've, you know, like there have been women who've certainly told me like we're not sexually compatible, and it's
Whoa.
like, yeah,
What?
totally.
Dang.
They said that?
Yeah.
Why?
But I don't know. Maybe we hooked
Oh.
up and it wasn't great.
Oh. Well, what is your experience?
I'm trying to think.
Well, I mean, I feel like there's also a difference between like casual hookups and like this sounds like a serious relationship, and
True.
sounds like this person wants things to work out.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like, you know, there's also relationships. This is specifically a woman, right, who feels more sexual than her male partner.
Yeah.
Right.
But I feel like whatever the sexuality or gender is, I feel like if there's a lot of times, I think the person who maybe isn't as sexual also just doesn't feel sexy. And so I also think it is
Yep.
like it's good to just make the other person feel sexy. I feel like when someone makes you feel sexy, it also like I kind of want to fuck more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It feels good to be made to feel sexy.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that can also be just that sounds like simple, but just like encouragement, I think is
that's really
good
good advice.
and like, you know, can be liberating if, you know, if that
Yeah.
person is maybe closed off because they're self-conscious about something.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
But like, coming like as someone who comes from like the more anxious approach when it comes to sex, something that helps me personally a lot is like the permission to fail and the reassurance of knowing,
Wow.
even if this like we try this something different, or even if like we try to fuck and it doesn't go as planned, like it's truly okay. Like it's okay. This is safe. Like it's okay to fail. And that like really helps me.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and you're like, I think that's sound advice, especially on your end.
You
like
know,
just encouragement.
Yeah, encouragement. You know, but the hard thing is because I used to be really insecure about my body. Like I have like body dysmorphia and stuff like that. And so I think now I'm like so much better at sex because I'm just like like that.
Yeah.
Whereas in before I was like like so
Totally.
in my head about how fucking disgusting I thought that I looked that I couldn't even if somebody sometimes it's just like it's hard because like
That's such a
somebody
good
my
point.
partner could have been like, obviously if they're having sex with me they were attracted to me, they could have
Yeah.
said whatever and I would still be like, no, I'm ugly, turn off the lights.
Yeah.
So it's like it is kind of hard, you know.
I
Yeah.
think, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think that, I think women should do this to men, and I think men should do this to other men, and I think, you know, I think everyone should, like, also during sex, tell the other person that they're fucking hot.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's...
I do.
Huh?
I do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
good. Like, let people know that you're, like, really enjoying and feeling them, too.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's something I wish I did more of, too. And I
Yeah,
wish that
for
other
sure.
people had done that to me as well.
Right. I agree.
Right.
I think there's so much about, you know, I think especially in America, it's like sex is like a finish line. There's a finish line to it. It's like, okay, we're going to get to here. You know,
There's a goal.
There's a goal.
Yeah.
You know, and there shouldn't be a goal. You know, I feel like that's something people, it's just an experience. You know what I'm saying? It's you guys are just it's not like it's not a race. It's just like you guys, just two people riffing, dude. You know, two people, one on the ukulele,
jamming,
just
man.
jamming. And when you have it, it's like that. Then like sure. Hey, you're gonna play the hits.
Yeah.
You're also you're gonna try this weird thing with the bongo and the ukulele later on.
What
And
is
then-
your air instrument when you have sex? Mine is like a really low, like sitting low bass guitar.
Yeah. Mine's definitely
me.
a sitar.
Sitar?
Yeah, sitar.
Mine's a harp.
Yeah, dude. I mean,
What's
so you
yours,
know,
Brian?
like,
Brian's a pickle.
I'm a piccolo.
yeah. And I think that's a good analogy. You know, then you're not afraid to fail. You're telling the other person, dude, nice harp playing, sick harp playing, dude.
Yours is a
Rockin'."
triangle.
Yeah, one's just trying.
The cowbell.
Yeah,
Mine's the cowbell.
yeah. You do. Yeah, and you know you have to get into your own playing. You know, you think you're awesome, and that's a good way to start off. You know.
But also, I feel like the way you just described sex is also, I think, a good way to also think about, like, dating, too. Where it's like, I feel like dating is also very goal-oriented for a lot of people. And that's fine. It's okay to have a goal when it comes to dating.
Yeah.
I understand wanting to be like, I want to find my person.
Marriage and kids.
Sure.
Right.
But that's also such a goal-oriented way of looking
Absolutely.
at relationships, where it's like, also you should date people to have interesting experiences and have adventures and have fun with new people and like learn about yourself through other people. Like, you know, I think that's just good advice for dating.
Yeah, dude, get that sitar going.
That's like
Hell yeah.
that. I love that. Cause so many people, because you're just there to have fucking fun, man. Like you don't need to like
That's very true.
move to the suburbs and get a van, you know, with this
Yeah.
person.
I
I
do think
mean-
it's always weird when people are like, it's like, you not so much in New York because people who are like this don't end up in New York or stay in New York, but it's like the whole, it's like they're trying to catch Pokemon of just like, God met this person, now we're moving this here, now we're doing this, and now we're having kid A, and exactly 18 months later we're having kid B, and then we're, you know, like, and I'm getting, you know, it's like there's a lot of people like that, and I always think of that as being like far more just psychotic than someone who's just like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm trying to figure it out, because you know, like, it's just so regimented, and if it doesn't fit to that plan, then
Yeah.
people get discarded very easily.
It's so pervasive everywhere.
Yeah.
'cause
Yeah.
Even in just sex, the
Yes.
goal is,
There's a goal.
it's always like, dude comes. That's
Jizz.
jizz.
That's exactly.
Done. Sex is done.
We did it.
Guy comes.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
We
We
both
did it.
Porn is always
Come.
like that. Just
Yeah.
come.
We won at sex.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's no. Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
Yeah,
And
that's
then
like
it's weird.
yeah. Well, that's such a good point. I think I really I really think that's great advice to not see things at like a finish
Because you're
line.
jamming, you're having
Just
missionary
jamming,
sex,
dude.
and you
You're just
realize you
jamming.
really need to buy some fucking salmon, so you just stop and you go
Dude,
get some salmon.
Yeah.
man, you need some salmon, baby. And then the salmon becomes part of the sex, dude. You're at fucking Safeway
That
getting
will
salmon.
cause a yeast infection.
That
as
will
well.
cause a yeast
Don't
infection.
bring
Smell-wise,
smoked
I'm
salmon
not
into
salmon.
this.
Don't want to get the
Don't
salmon in there.
Smoked salmon
Okay,
into the
you
bedroom.
know, but you're backtracking. You're backtracking.
Don't
Now you're in the
bring
parking
And then
lot.
you got the
Salmon.
donut back into
You
the
got
mix.
the donut back in there. You stop by the
Ew,
donut
salmon
shop.
and donuts.
End
Okay,
of
this combination isn't working. That's okay, baby. You know, get the sit going.
everything leads to somebody getting a yeast infection.
Yeah,
All right, so I guess that like actually leads us to our last topic.
Marriage/divorce.
Yeah.
All
You wanna kick
Right.
us off, young me?
Oh, well, so we got a lot of messages, from people. Like I said, we really haven't touched on marriage a lot on our podcast, which is weird. I was married for 10 years. I'm divorced.
I just feel like most podcasts, people are like, singles being singles hard. I'm dating, and there's
Yeah.
so many dating podcasts, and
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. Yeah, you don't-
We were being neglectful to our wonderful married and divorced listeners.
I mean,
And
yeah.
I feel
can
like
see
a
why.
marriage podcast would be just like a Christian youth pastor. Like, I love
All right.
being married to my
I'm
wife
married
every week.
And
It's
we
great.
bought the salmon and she got a yeast infection. And no, yeah.
But I feel like you could be a good host of a
Yeah.
cool marriage.
Marriage.
I
Doing it the
podcast.
cool way.
marriage. I think it's cool that I think that the
You
difference.
can title it "Happily Married."
Aggressively.
aggressively married.
married.
Is I went to I went to see Mary Beth Barone's Drag His Ass show,
Yeah.
and they had a section where they were just like talking about like the fuckboys this is from the audience, like fuckboys they've met, and like there was like these not even insane, but just like dating stories that they could go on and on, but it's like they're bad, they're terrible, but they're kind of fun, and it's a story where you're like, that totally sucks. But in like a couple years, you're gonna look back and everyone's gonna be like, I can't believe that happened. Fuck that guy. It was great. Right.
Right.
But like I feel like with marriage, the stakes are very high all the
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
And because if there's something that's bad that happens in the marriage,
Yeah.
that's like a bad sign.
Yeah, yeah.
So I feel like there's not there's like it's a wonderful thing, but it's like less fun. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
There can
yeah.
be really great moments that are really deep. It's very beautiful. Then
Mhm.
but it's less like, yeah, we're doing shots later. Although, hey, me and my wife do shots all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to be happily married, do shots with your partner is what Mike's saying right now.
Yes, that is
Well,
a huge part of it.
So we got a lot of messages from people that I saw a lot of messages like saying that the pandemic caused, because everyone knows this, caused them to like realize that they're unhappily married.
Yeah.
And then along what you were saying, Mike, with the people who think that
Yeah.
they have to follow, like get married,
path,
have kids,
right.
move, blah 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 blah. We got a message from somebody saying that she is single and she's unmarried and doesn't have kids, and that is like so much stress and pressure because everyone always brings it up, and
Ugh.
like what Brian said, it's so pervasive in our society. Like
To have the
people
goal.
are obsessed with like
Yeah.
this. Married for 8 years now, and I still have trouble telling my wife that she did something wrong. I end up blaming other people for something that went wrong that was her fault due to her choices, so that I avoid her feeling bad or looking like I'm blaming her. This could be a thing where I'm objectively an asshole for thinking these parentheses few things were her fault, but I'll probably never know.
do you ever have that, Mike? Like it's hard to communicate that to your wife.
So my wife and I, we've noticed that we don't fight nearly as much as we do because there are trigger points that every single person, individuals have, that are like things that will set a person off for whatever reason, and they're usually very small, relatively small things. And in the relationship that we've had, like I had to learn what mine were, and she had to learn what hers were, and I think it sounds like for this person, there is a criticism that that the wife is sensitive to.
Mm.
Like, you know what I'm saying, the way you bring these sort of things up,
Mm-hmm.
right?
I still have
And-
trouble telling my wife that she did something wrong.
Right, exactly. And so that to me is telling that he's done this. He's tried to bring it up before, and she's sensitive to it,
Mm.
right? And because
Like
maybe
certain
she
trigger point,
she
okay.
gets there's a trigger point there,
Yeah.
right?
But, yeah.
And for me and my wife, I think we had to learn what those were in order to head them off, right?
So-
A lot of this is about this is what a lot of therapy is like identifying the thing that is like causing you to irrationally fly off the handle and get super mad.
Right.
One thing I've learned too is that when you get upset at your partner, it's a weird part of your brain that is like something unfair is happening to me, and I am going to like lash out, right?
Mhm.
And the trick, I guess, is to understand that you're getting upset and to understand why you're getting upset, and then to bring that up to the person and to try to cool off the problem. You know, it's like an alarm going off, right? There is a problem, and you need to bring it up to your partner without blowing up the whole
I was
warehouse.
I would.
But what do you do in the case that it is the thing that is making you upset is something that your wife that's a trigger point for her?
Mm.
It's
Right.
upsetting. Like, you know, I'm speaking idealistically. What's the issue with just radical transparency then, and
Yeah.
just like laying it all out there, and
You
clear the air faster, but it may hurt.
Well, I think you need to work on that thing, whatever the trigger is, and to bring it up. But remember that by definition, that is a sensitive point, and that person has to be able to like accept that is. So, for example, like the way I used to fight with my wife was, I would bring up a like counter example that was clearly not real. And I realized I learned
I
that
hate that.
technique
Yeah.
from my mom. My mom
Yeah,
still
yeah.
does that.
I hate that.
She
yeah.
still does it, and I know when she's doing it now, and I know when
Mhm.
I'm doing it now, and it's
Yeah.
taken years and years and years for me to even know when I'm doing it, and then so it just is. It's like it's first you identify it, you have to both acknowledge that that's a problem, and then you both have to work on those things. But it takes a long time. You could do the radical
Yeah.
thing, but you could also that ends up just that person might just retreat further back into the thing. So.
Mm.
Right.
I don't know what the exact answer is, but I think first acknowledging it and that person's seeing I do have an issue with this. Maybe I learned it usually you learn it from your parents,
Right.
but because that's who you model your relationships after, right?
Totally.
So
Yeah.
you start from there, and you both work towards trying to not have that. You both realize this is you both have to deep down go, it's really hard to do this when you're fighting.
Yeah.
But like if you're like, okay, I love you, but this is pissing me off. And like if you can lay that baseline down, then it's like a net. You're like, okay, we're not going to break up or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We're going to work on this thing, even though I fucking want to kill you right now.
So but this is how I'm reading it.
Yeah,
the
I could be
message,
reading
'cause
this
you
message
said-
wrong. Yeah.
You were like, oh, it sounds like he's done this and she reacted bad, and now he's sort of like afraid of or like not comfortable doing it again.
Yeah.
But for me, I was reading it like he's seeing it as an issue with himself. I was like, I don't
right.
even think she's ever. I don't know, maybe she has, but
no,
in
you're
this
right.
message, it sounds like he's like, I am somehow incapable of confronting her because I'm afraid.
You're absolutely right.
So like, but not, I'm not,
I mean,
which
these are both like great.
yeah,
I think-
because
I
we
think
don't
that's
know
true.
because we
And
don't
I
know he
think-
didn't say that. But the
Yeah,
thing is, maybe this is probably because I see myself in these comments and messages. Like I've had that issue in the past where the other person didn't do anything, but I was just too afraid of confrontation, so I would never confront them because I was like just me terrified of confrontation. And now
Right.
I've like matured, and now I can handle it. But when I was younger, I would just be so scared to confront like my old roommate, and I would never bring up anything, and then I was just terrified of her all the time.
yeah.
I'm the same way,
Yeah.
and it's in net. It's always a worse outcome because I'm very non-confrontational. I don't want to make people upset, so I tend to fall into people-pleasing tendencies.
Yeah.
But that thing that made me upset, or that trigger, it still hasn't been released inside of me, so it just bubbles and stews,
Just
and then I
resentment.
snap.
Yeah, resentment, and you're just like, fuck this person, and the truth is, if I confronted like this is a good example, my old roommate about, hey, I don't like it when you do this, she might have just been like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, or she might have been like, shut up, you bitch, or whatever. I don't know what she would have done, but like the truth is,
I mean,
never
we deal with it in our own podcast, where
Yeah.
anytime I get upset at you, and you're like, oh, I could tell that there was something bothering you. Like, weeks leading up to it.
Oh
I'm
my
like,
God, yeah, Brian.
fuck.
Brian, I can tell when Brian's upset. I'm like, what is it,
Yeah.
Brian?
With you or in general?
At me or something
Like,
else even.
working, when we're working,
Yeah.
we're working on something together.
Like,
and
Brian,
there's
are you mad at
disagreements
me?
that
And he's like,
happen.
yes, I'm mad at you. One time he called me and said, yes, I'm mad at you. I was like,
But
I
that's
knew
a good,
it.
That's
Yeah.
a good,
Yeah.
like, that's a good marriage relationship right there. You detect
yeah.
that the other person, and then you lay it out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
You know, and you
we
work
fought,
on that thing.
Our
Yeah.
friend relationship is like that because we fight a lot.
Yeah.
Do
But then
you?
we,
I think
not
it's
a
just
lot, but it's
when you do a podcast or just any
misworded it.
creative
Sure,
endeavor
yeah.
We
with
get
someone,
very
we're different
intense.
personalities. Like
Like,
it
we are
happens.
angry, screaming. But
Interesting.
But
Yeah.
we know, like, we're not gonna ever. It's like that's how marriages are. We know we're not gonna get divorced. We're not gonna get a divorce.
We're not
We're
getting a divorce.
mad, but
So
like,
I think,
Right.
yeah. I mean, well, first, how about you? Are you good with confrontation? Are you like good with like bringing that up to?
I think I'm getting better,
Yeah.
but I haven't had anyone romantically been around long enough to even
Yeah.
worry about confrontation.
That's
to,
the secret.
like,
yeah.
that's
I love
you
it.
stay
I'm great at it.
violently single, no confrontations.
None.
Got
Right.
nobody to confront. No, that's not good. But I feel like with other relationships, like friendships and family stuff, like when issues arise, I do sort of want to just like, hey, that was weird. Let's talk about this.
yeah.
So I also don't want, like, it's weird because I do think you don't want to be seen as a confrontational person necessarily, but I'm
It's hard
the
for
older.
women, yeah.
I wish that there was a better, like,
Yeah.
confrontation sounds like,
Hostile.
Yeah.
yeah, it sounds
You're gonna-
hostile,
yeah.
but it's
Mm.
like, no, it's almost like transparent is maybe a better
Yeah.
open,
Being
open.
transparent. Yeah.
Or like
That's how I see it now.
proactively, like willing to problem solve.
Yeah.
But it
That's a
does
good
have
way to
a
put
bad
it.
connotation that maybe is some weird internalized sexism that I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm scared to be considered confrontational. But the truth is,
Yeah.
I do want to be seen as someone who's like, yeah, let's.
Yes.
I don't like passive aggressive energy. I don't
Right.
want
The
to be
worst.
passive aggressive
Yep.
towards people.
Yep.
Yeah.
I have been in the past. I
Yep.
don't think it's cute.
Yeah.
So it's something
the
I don't want to
worst.
work. I like, yeah.
Yeah. No, I
That's-
mean, I have
yeah.
that with my girlfriend now where she's called me out on passive aggressive energy. And I'm like, yo,
So
fuck.
Can I
creative.
just make
Yeah.
a joke?
It's true. Yeah.
Brian, I just feel like when you're upset, like it's so I can't like imagine you being like, yeah, that's fine.
Through
No,
gritted
I'm
teeth.
fine. What do you mean?
Great.
Yeah, passive aggressive is and I'm sorry for this person if you're listening. Like it's not obviously not your fault because like if you're being afraid of
Confrontation is
is
hard. It's
it's
hard.
scary.
Mhm.
And you like a lot of people like for me mine was caused by like a traumatic childhood and abuse
yeah,
and like
yeah.
a lot of like abuse like survivors are that's where we're that's why we're afraid of it. Do you know what I mean? And so like that's totally fine, but like the passive aggressive fucking thing, it's so toxic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
for
it's
sure.
like it's like what you were saying. You're like let's not call it confrontation. Let's call it. I'm just an honest person. I'm being honest with my emotions. I'm angry, and I'm telling you. So
Yeah.
you
Right.
don't have to sit there and guess and be scared or whatever.
Right.
Like we should
Right.
reframe that like that.
Absolutely.
That's a good advice.
Do
We're
we
gonna-
think that Korean people like? Where do we learn? Because I feel like that is something I
Tread
see.
carefully.
What?
Do
What did you say, Mike?
Mike
Yeah.
open. Do we think Korean
Do we
people?
think? I mean, like, yeah, I feel like passive aggressiveness is a very Asian thing.
Yeah.
You know, you see with like in-laws and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, like, why is it that? Why is that the route that's taken? You know what I'm saying? Because I think other cultures are a little bit more, maybe sometimes
Yeah.
stereotypically, but they're a little bit more like get your feelings out there.
direct.
You
yeah.
know, maybe not to say that that's always the best course of action.
Well, because
Right.
like culturally, it's looked down upon to show your emotions. They
Oh,
see it
yeah.
as weakness.
Right.
Like they're like even the sexism thing like is like
Yeah.
if a woman is angry, she's a bitch. You know, like
Right.
that's like sexist. But I think in Korea there's a lot of like belief that if you cry, like people are like, oh, well, you're crying, wow, like
Yeah.
you get angry. People like make fun of you for emoting. Like
Right.
you're not in control of your emotions, or you're like. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you're immature or
Mm.
something whenever you show your emotions.
That is a
I
great
think-
point, though.
I think it's also maybe people I think that like respect is a big part of the culture
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
And like honor. And so I feel like sometimes confrontation can maybe like you're embarrassing me by confronting me. You're
Right.
pointing out like,
Mm.
you're causing me shame in a way that it's a bummer kind
Yeah.
of. To
Yeah,
Yeah.
people
Right.
don't know that you can do something wrong and it's fine. Like, you don't have to be ashamed. But if you
Yeah.
believe that, then if somebody confronts you, then it's like you're shaming me.
Whoa.
Right. And even with the hierarchy of if you are the elder or then
Yes.
assuming the
Right.
position of power, it is almost demeaning to your power to confront someone that
Yeah.
something is like upsetting you that
Yeah,
much.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
the
yeah.
expectation is that you're chilling.
So
Yeah.
toxic.
Yeah.
It's so toxic. I hate
This
that.
is sort of a side. It's not related to relationships, but I think one of the weirdest things I've ever learned is to respect your elders. I've
Mm.
always thought of that as being the reason why I don't speak up to a lot of people.
Mm.
Because for a long time I was younger than everyone, and now I'm kind of older than everyone. So I'm like, but I'm like now I'm like, oh, that was kind of, I don't want to say it's bullshit. I think there is value. Of course, you should, I guess, but like to me, it like stunted me a lot. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm not supposed to talk back to this person.
Mm.
This a lot of my relatives would be complete assholes to me, and I
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to say anything.
That
I do this
sucks.
at work, like if you're older than me, and now I realize these people, they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
They,
They
are
don't know.
exactly the
Literally
same as
don't
me.
know.
They've just been alive longer.
Totally.
And they may actually be dumber than me, and they're just alive longer
and getting worse with age.
and getting
Yeah.
worse with age. And I'm just like, this is one of the worst
Stupider
things
and
I've ever
stupider.
had.
If you were
You know?
young and if you're in high school, don't ever listen to adults.
That high
They're
school-
stupid. I was way smarter when I was in high school.
We want to.
Old
So we have
people are
one more message that it touches on the realm of marriage and divorce. And once again, we want to thank all our listeners for submitting their stories and putting themselves out
That's
there. We definitely are going to make this into a recurring thing. But this person wrote, "I'm currently divorced and I'm single and I'm trying to date. It's hard to meet people organically and online. I date older with hopes of finding a more mature guy, but come to find that once they're 40 plus and still single, there's a reason for that."
Ooh, what I say about respecting your
Oh
elders?
my
Don't
god!
respect those elders.
If a guy is 40 plus and single,
Oh yeah.
run,
Really?
Meaning,
Really?
like, never been married even?
run.
Is that the same?
I think maybe
I think
let's make a
never been
distinction
He's
between the two.
divorced.
Never married. I think never
Divorce
Is
is
married.
that
fine.
better then?
I don't know. They're all bad, actually. If a man, once a man, I talk about this all the time. Once like a straight man hits 40, not to sound ageist, that is so bad. That's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. I'm gonna
ageist, even though
I'm
what
gonna
I said
switch-
is extremely
what I
ageist.
have to
No,
say.
go ahead.
I'm gonna reframe that.
Pop
Delete
off.
that. Nobody
keep it in.
It's still
listen.
punching up.
I'm
It's
gonna
fine.
keep it in.
It's okay. There is a certain thing that happens to a lot of. This is New York specific
New
too.
York for
so
sure.
I'm not. I'm
I
not
think
saying.
I think I
'cause
agree with you.
New York guys that are single and they're like 45 and they like I don't know went to like an Ivy League and they live in fucking Lower East Side, like those
Yep.
guys run away
I've
run
never
away
experienced that
like
person.
there's like a lot of them, like
Really?
I feel like
You never like met I'm
run
I'm
away.
the creative
It's
director
we're
at a
too
thing,
old
and I'm,
because
in
we're
my-
not 22.
But they're
I'm in
like
Soho
my
House.
age.
Yeah, okay. You
Yeah.
never met an older one who's
Ugh.
like
The divorced
always-
ones are
yeah,
weird.
okay.
Like, because I'm like, I interact with like divorced dads and married dad. Like
Yeah.
those guys
Yeah.
run.
wow.
Run. They're so fucking. There's something happens. You're not supposed to live in New York City that long and single and
Yeah.
taking down every. You know what I mean? Like
But
you're not
yeah.
supposed to be doing that long.
But there's like a whole like mythos here of like that person. I watch a lot of Sex in the City, so it's like the whole like Mr. Big.
That
He's
guy.
like he's that guy, right? And there's like a New York is very tolerant of that
And it's
kind of
almo-
person. And in
Yeah.
fact,
They create
they
that
create that
guy.
person and value that this is a guy. He's never been married. He's committed to his job. He works really hard. Blah blah blah. You're the man. That's like the goal, like the
Yeah.
stereotypical goal of like a career New York person.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of value for those guys, and those
Mhm.
guys feel comfortable just like being a fucking fuckboy.
Mm.
Going to Ibiza.
It's so
I
And
will
they're
admit
just so
though,
weird.
not some of those details, but a small part of me maybe wants to be a female version of that.
Yeah, no,
That's
it's fine
cool.
if you're.
Being honest.
It's
I'm into
fine
that.
if you're a woman.
Is it okay if
Yeah,
you're
it's
a
cool.
woman?
It's like that's cool.
Yeah.
I love that.
Okay.
Gen
I actually
Alliance.
know a lot of women that are
Oh,
that,
yeah.
and every single one of them are fucking awesome. Brian just asked, "Do you think it's harder getting older and dating?"
Like, does it
Well,
get
I
older
guess
harder to date when
We're
you get
all
older?
like similar.
Because it's not like from this person's experience,
Ooh.
like the dating pool gets. You're like, fuck. These dudes are weird.
I don't know. I'm my age. I don't even think I'm that old, but I think a lot of people, I'm right, like they do up to 35. You know what I mean? I'm 36.
Oh.
So that's why I think I don't get like as many. I mean, I do get a lot of matches on dating apps and stuff like that, but
Right.
like I have a feeling I was like, I bet a lot of people do up to 35.
Okay,
Whoa.
both of you I think I've said this before. Both of you have popped up on my Hinge.
Really?
Like the special people.
Really?
Wow.
Yes. I thought I
Oh my
messaged you
God.
once.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my God.
I wanted to
really?
give you both a rose just to be like, hey, but I'm like, nah, I don't want to waste my rose on them. 'Cause
Wait,
you
I
only get
would've
one a
remembered
week,
if
and then
you
I have to
messaged-
pay, so I'm not going to do that. But I would give you both roses as friends.
Wow.
What is the special thing? See, this is like some
It's
type
like,
of-
oh, if
it's
they
like-
think that you're gonna be compatible or
Oh, really?
No.
No.
Oh, no?
That's not what it means.
No.
It's not.
Oh.
It's not that you guys were recommended as in like we think you would. It's like this is who's popular and wanted on Hinge.
something. Really?
Whoa, that's
What?
fucked
They
up.
have
What?
that? I've
I
never
thought it
seen
was
that.
algorithmically catered to.
But it's not just who you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
There's a special carousel
know.
with the rose
you know, like
next
the
to it.
standouts.
Whoa.
They're like,
The
these guys
standouts,
are
the
amazing.
standouts. You guys have both been on my
What?
standouts.
Wow.
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 Have I been on your standouts?
I haven't looked at Hinge in a really long time. I mean, look, I haven't looked. I don't even look at that part. I'm actually kind of unsure of what you're talking about. I don't think I've ever seen that part. Where is it?
Yeah, I don't know. What's the
a
standout?
tab.
I
I'll
don't
show you.
know.
Oh, there's a
You know,
tab.
Brian, you
I've
said
literally
stand
never
Whatever
seen
Young Me
it.
said, I don't
Yeah.
know.
I don't. No, I've
Wow.
seen. I am like not 100%
No,
sure.
I'm
I know
pretty
what you're
sure
talking
it's
about.
algorithmically catered to like because there's a
But
type.
you're still getting highlighted. Like it's Hinge is
Yeah.
saying these are people who are in demand and good, and like everyone who's on it, there's no like it's all hot people. on
Whenever I
it.
see that, I'm like, I don't want to click on this person because they're cheating on me already. Like I get really weird, like like the Tinder. What is it? The Tinder thing? Like, oh, this person's really popular. Do you want to super like them? I'm like, no, I break up with them
Wow.
because they're cheating on me. Never mind, I unswipe.
Wow.
There's a trope about like divorced moms or never dating or whatever. I'm like, what? Who
Yeah, but they're
said?
not, I mean, come on, they're not getting special liked or whatever it's called on Hinge. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, thanks Hinge.
Yeah.
I haven't looked at Hinge in so long. Damn.
Damn.
They were putting me on.
Yeah, you're gonna have so many, dude.
Damn.
Yeah. It's like getting a recommendation on LinkedIn.
Nice.
That rounds out our dating roundup episode. Julia and Mike, thank you so much for joining us
That is
on the podcast.
so fire that you don't even provide answers. See, this is how come you guys are so successful.
We don't have answers.
It's so good. It's just like you're just gonna bring it out
Were
there,
you-
and we're just gonna sitar vibe it, dude.
Yeah.
Dude, there's no answer.
Yeah, you know.
We're not helping anyone.
We're not helping. We're
but
just
Sorry
We're
if
just
still
saying.
fun.
Yeah, that was great. That was amazing.
Okay, Mike. Well, if you're so
So
eager to
No.
prescribe advice,
No.
do you have any last parting words for our
No,
listeners?
no. Don't try. No. You're gonna Don't pin this on me.
I'm going to say
Yeah.
Mike's advice is when you're having marriage sex, you got to plan your day at the same time.
Plan your day. That's what
Save
Dylan
on
told
time.
me. Dylan
Efficiency
Adler.
is
Shouts.
everything.
He was about efficiency, and also remember, get divorced. Okay?
Get divorced. I think Julia had a lot of great advice today, actually. I was like,
Amazing.
yes.
You're great.
Right? Yeah, do you have any-
Single and wise, baby. That's funny that I had good advice because clearly it's not working. Like I'm not.
But I feel you're thriving. I feel whenever
You're thriving
every
single.
time I see, I'm
Last
like,
time I
look
saw
at
you said you're
her
happy.
thriving.
Right?
Oh,
Like we were
Really?
talking about how like there's that trope that women want to get married and have babies and you're like,
Yeah.
no, I love being single.
I'm comfortable being single.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we all have our moments. Yeah. I think they're like in general though. I do feel like it's been a good time to date myself.
Yeah.
It's great.
And I think everyone should date themselves for a bit.
And get divorced.
And then divorce
and
yourself.
I
Divorce
advise
yourself.
Divorce
Divorce.
yourself. Because you're a piece of shit.
For listeners out there, where can they find you and your work?
You can find me. Check out my podcast with Fumi Abe. It's Asia Not Asian. Find us on the internet on all the platforms. And you can find me on Instagram at Nice Pants Bro.
How about you, Julia?
Nothing to really plug, but you can follow me at Julia Shiplett on everything, including Venmo.
Wow.
What about you, Brian?
You guys can find me on socials at It's Brian Park. And what about you?
YM Mayor and Young Me Mayor on TikTok. And you can follow our podcast at Feeling Asian Podcast on Instagram and TikTok and our YouTube channel.
Yes.
Feeling
And our next live show is September 16th at Caveat. It sold out the first time Mike was there.
Go to it. It's amazing. It's so good.
It sold out in 30 minutes last time, so if you're hearing this, get your ticket
Wow.
now. Caveat.nyc.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.